doing, wrestling fans? And welcome to another edition of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight Podcast. We are the only wrestling podcast that brings you back 30 years with vintage audio featuring some of the biggest names of that time. The Pro Wrestling Spotlight covered all the news stories and breaking developments that happened in real time. And now we get to relive those moments right here on this podcast. Today, we will get back to regular format, reviewing the shows from 1993, and we have a good one for you today as we go back to May 8th, 1993, with special guest Ron Skoler, the visionary and architect of bringing AAA of Mexico to the United States in 1993, which resulted in the invasion of Lucha Libre to California, resulting in record-breaking gates during a downtime in wrestling that year. But first, I want to let you know all about our Patreon page. And as our patrons know, we have tons of content up there. And I want to thank all the new members that have joined over the last couple of weeks, especially those from the UK who seem to have found the Patreon page. So $5 a month gets you in the door. And for that $5 a month, you'll get all the archives of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight dating back to 1989 and even earlier. And if you want to increase your level, we have levels at $10 a month, $25 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month. And each level gives you more exclusive content and opportunities like appearances on this show, 8mm films that I shot as a kid back at Madison Square Garden, vintage audio, vintage video. So why don't you just go to patreon.com/John Arezzi, and I'm sure you will be very satisfied with the content you get on our Patreon page. I also want to apologize for being kind of out of action the last couple of weeks. We did give you some best of shows, and we had been attempting to put together a reunion show with those 1989 core folks who were on Pro Wrestling Spotlight for a long time, and we did make an attempt to do that. And I'm going to bring Marsh on so we could talk about that before we bring our special guest on. Marsh, how you doing?
Hey, John, I'm doing pretty good.
You are out west yourself.
Yep.
I know you attended some wrestling out there. You're also now visiting family. So you saw what, a women's Japanese wrestling show?
Well, it was NJPW Strong, so it wasn't just the women. But that was the one that had the tournament where Mercedes Monet was going for the NJPW Strong Women's Championship. It was the debut, the inaugural champion, and she caught like an injury right at the end, and Willow ended up getting it. Yeah, it was a real injury. We were pretty worried about when it happened. Yeah.
What happened? What was it, a move, or what did she do?
It looked like she jumped from the top to the outside to perform a move onto Willow. And then she just kind of laid down there for a bit longer than we thought. We're like, did she hurt her ankle or her knee or something? She kind of rolled in. The finish was like slow. Like there was a lot of talking happening. Then the ref was trying to protect the finish and didn't do the count. And then you could just see her talking to the ref a bunch like, hey, this is it. And so they're like, well, now what do we do? So she basically is like, well, give me another gut wrench power bomb. Does that. And then this time the ref was like, really didn't want to count to 3 again. And she was like, still talking to him, like, count. And then he did the 3 count. Willow won, and she was like, get me out of here. So it was kind of wild to see it in play. And I kept watching her talk. And I was like, she's trying to tell them that she's calling an audible.
Yeah.
One way or another. Whether this isn't the meant finish or whether she was supposed to win or not, I don't know. But the ref did not want it to end in that moment. And it was tough.
Wow. Interesting stuff. But I know that you enjoy going to these shows when you're out and about. And
it was really fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. You're out in the West. I just got back from Florida. For the last several weeks, we were attempting to put together a reunion show with Broadway Sonny Blaze, Donnie Liable, the Power Twins, and Bruce Jacobs. And we finally got everybody together. Well, Bruce couldn't make it. He had taken a new job out in Arizona, so he couldn't be there. But we tried our hardest. And I have to say, it was a clusterfuck of something I have not experienced before.
It was uniquely John Arezzi to see so many mistakes. the technical difficulties that surround your shows, John. It's amazing.
Well, it wasn't even our fault. It was like the twins couldn't get it together. They were in Vegas.
Yeah.
I asked them about 20 times, "Are you in the same room?" One was on a phone. The other seemed to be on an iPad or something. They weren't even hardly on camera. They were talking to each other. They weren't talking to us. And Broadway, Sonny Blaze and Donnie, we had some good conversation. We were trying to and then they cut themselves off, and then they tried in the middle of it to bring themselves back.
Try to come back.
So I don't know what we're going to do with this. We'll discuss it offline. I may put up a poll to our patrons. Do you want to see it as is? Or do you want us to try to edit it in some capacity? Or do we just shelve it? I don't know, because I was not happy with it.
Yeah, it wasn't cohesive by any stretch of the imagination.
No, because we had clips, mostly of the twins, with all of their insults and the way they were back in 1989. And they didn't even hear any of them. I mean, It was just kind of the most ridiculous thing. And you see the top of one's head, then you see another one upside down. It's hilarious in its own way, but it's certainly not broadcast ready. And it's certainly, that's why I don't know what to do with it.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm wondering, do I just make a best of blooper clip for YouTube or something? Or
it could be a 5 or 10 minute blooper, whatever. I don't know, but I'm going to put up a poll, and if the patrons want it, we may just say, "Here you go."
But if they demand it, they cannot complain about it.
That's right. If you patrons watching this want this travesty of a show, because I'm not going to do it again with them. I can't.
Not unless it's live in person. That's the only way.
Yeah. I don't even know if I want to see them again in person anymore.
To put like glass between you two.
It was just, I was thinking about it after we got done. I was just out of my mind, like frustrated. But anyway, that's what we tried to do. I was in Florida also. And so the last few weeks we've had best ofs, which was really going to lead up to the reunion show. Because we had, 4 shows that really highlighted 89 and 90 with the twins, and, to try to let people like laugh and then get ready for the reunion show where they'd laugh some more. These guys have not changed. They're still the same. They're just much older, and they are still as ridiculous as they ever have been.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's that. But today's going to be a special one. We've been working on this for a while, Marsh, and Ron, we're going to bring Ron Skoler on in a sec, but this is a guy who was just, I used the word visionary, and he was. So before, without any further ado, I should say, let's bring on direct from New York City, Mr. Ron Skoler. There he is. Ron, how are you?
Good, John. How are you? Hello, Marsh.
Hey, how's it going?
I am so happy that you agreed to do this, because once this episode came about, and it was when I heard it, and there you are in the studio, I was like, all right, let's try to get Ron to see if he'd come on and talk about what happened 30 years ago. And you had a little bit of a vacation in Puerto Rico, and now you're back, and here we are.
Yeah, no, thanks for inviting me on. I just don't know where the last 30 years went.
They fly by, man. I tell you, they do. They do. And you're still practicing entertainment law in New York, I would guess.
Yeah. Still got some interesting projects going, not wrestling related, but you never know. But I look back very fondly on these things. I keep the door open if something comes by that's extraordinary and exciting and all of that. Sure, I didn't even realize that it was 30 years since the show that we're talking about.
Yeah, time flies. And I want to fill everybody in on how we met. I mean, you were basically initially just a listener, I believe, to Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
That's right. On WEVD, I think it was, right? In New York?
Yes.
You had a show on at night.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Monday nights?
We had started on a Sunday evening and then eventually went to a Saturday night.
Okay. Yeah, I remember on Sunday when I was first listening. And, it was fascinating to me because, I grew up a wrestling fan. I always, loved that coming up, growing up in, in primarily Long Island. And it was about, the WWF, Bruno Sammartino, and a lot of those guys who were great. Dr. Jerry Graham, one of my favorites. Killer Kowalski, Gorilla Monsoon. You go on and on with these guys. It was exciting. It was interesting. And I remember at one time I was watching with my older cousin on a Saturday afternoon, and I didn't know, what pro wrestling was all about. And he was saying to me, like, I bet I could guess every winner, in this hour. And I was like, oh no way. And yeah, he did. Somehow I thought, that Klondike Bill and Prince Nero were going to beat, Cowboy Bill Watts or, Gorilla Monsoon or somebody like that.
So you're going back really to 1965, around there. I mean, because I remember watching it.
I was like 7 years old watching this stuff,
Yeah, so you're talking, certainly mid 60s. Spiro Sarion, Antonio Paese, Smasher Sloan, Baron Cicluna.
Not Smasher Sloan, but Baron Cicluna. I saw him at the Island Garden, wrestled Bruno Sammartino. That had to be like around 68, I think.
Yeah, so you went to some live shows back.
Yeah, I was. My father, may he rest in peace, he threw me out. He took me, but I was thrown out of Madison Square Garden when I went to see Bruno Sammartino against Baba the Giant, but I was under 14. It was a ridiculous rule, but they wouldn't let me in.
I had the same thing in 1967. It was Bruno against Gorilla Monsoon. And we had bought our tickets when we got there, and I convinced my dad after, like, please take me to wrestling, please. And finally he consented. He got his friend from a few houses away, one of our neighbors, with his son and his daughter and myself. And we all trekked into New York City and get our tickets, and we get to go in. And this guy just, I never forget him. He looked like Ray Morgan, the announcer. He wasn't, but he was this guy. And he was just like, sorry, folks, you have to be 14 or older to get in. And
New York was just, ridiculous. Was the New York, despite whatever you say about, all the, the center of a lot of things, it's draconian. It was the Dark Ages. You couldn't have women wrestlers for a long time.
Or mask wrestlers.
Or mask wrestlers. I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah.
And it's ironic because then New York wanted everybody to wear a mask during COVID, but that's another story.
Yeah.
That is whether that really helped, I'm not so sure.
That is true. So anyway, you stayed a wrestling fan, and then here we are in the 90s. You find this Insider Wrestling talk show. And that's how we hooked up. And I believe you got a hold of me. And just
called you up.
Yeah.
It was. I had been. I loved the show. It was like inside stuff. That you wouldn't get through the After magazines and things like that. And I just found it was fascinating as the layers were being peeled back a little bit, and you could get to see more or less what was happening, and that was very avant-garde at the time,
Yeah, and we developed a friendship from that, and then all of a sudden, you're helping me by opening some doors. Did you introduce me to John Regner, I believe?
I think I did, because he was friends with Mike Appel.
That's right, because Mike Appel,
his manager.
Yes, you introduced me to Mike Appel as well, and we were in the middle of trying to put together this tour of overseas, and I meet Mike Appel, who was Bruce Springsteen's manager, Born to Run, the whole thing.
Producer. Yeah,
he was a producer. I mean, he was kind of the guy that broke Bruce in a lot of ways. He believed in him, but he was an interesting, shifty type of guy. So I take him to an ECW show before they were Extreme. Todd Gordon, I think Paulie was just taking over the book there, and I'm saying, this is what we're going to be promoting, and he comes with me. And he starts networking with some of the guys backstage, and then basically he, on the way back, he's kind of like, this is really good, and I think it's going to be a great project, and I don't know how long that you'll be involved in it. I'll be the figurehead.
Who said this? This Regner?
Appel. No, Appel.
I'm not gonna be a party to any criticism of Mike. I whatever happened, I love
Yeah,
Mike.
whatever it is. But anyway, it didn't work out with Mike, and I did the deal with Regner, and then of course, simultaneously, you had once we developed a friendship, you had a vision of wanting to bring Lucha Libre to the United States, and you started watching it. Tell us how you started engaging with Lucha Libre on TV.
I was living in a little house in Little Neck, Queens, right by the New York Long Island border, and we had Galavision was on the, or Galavision as they say, but I'm not into all the accents. When they say Galavision, it was an offshoot of either Univisa or Televisa, or one of those. It was a cable station, and they were showing, they would show the Lucha Libre from Mexico. They showed the AAA show. And I was watching this, and I was just like at night, like channel surfing, whatever. And I found this, and I don't think I even had, I didn't have much cable, just basic cable, and I was just fascinated and transfixed by this because these guys were different. They were smaller, they were more acrobatic, they wore masks, they had mask versus mask matches, hair versus mask matches, hair versus hair matches. They had, all kinds of the typical match was a 6-man tag team match. You had all kinds of stuff that was very, very new and different. Well, new to an American fan like myself. And I just really got into it, wouldn't miss a show, would go to, 42nd Street in the subway where they would sell these Mexican wrestling magazines and stuff, and I would just devour it. And I called you up and I asked, I say, hey, this is something really fascinating. Is anybody promoting this? Is anybody doing this in the United States? And I, subsequently found out there were people doing small shows like in college gyms and things like that. But you introduced me to, I think it was it Dave Meltzer?
Yeah, you asked if I knew anyone, and I was like, well, I mean, I know that Dave Meltzer covers this stuff every single week in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. I called Dave up.
Yeah.
And then I believe we might have had a call with Dave, and then he introduces us to Conan.
Right. And then Conan was like, the conduit who brought us together with Antonio Pena.
Right.
He gave us like the legitimacy, the street cred that Pena would deal with us. So I brought in Daryl Brooks, who was a R&B and hip hop promoter based in Washington, D.C., who had promoted, people in the music industry like Prince and Vogue, some of the other ones. I can't think of this second, but he did the Def Comedy Jam and SummerSlam and things like those kind of things. He was really
it's kind of a big deal promoter.
The Fresh Fest, things like that. He was a major promoter who had access to all of these, stadiums and arenas and all of that. And I brought him in, and that's when we went. We were invited to Mexico by Antonio Pena. He was the head of AAA, and we went down there. Daryl came with me, and he was a little bit, skeptical at first, as most people are when there's something, new that they're not aware of. And the next thing we went down there. We brought Jake with us. We brought a woman who was an interpreter because my Spanish wasn't that hot. And we went down there, and lo and behold, we're in this bull ring.
All right, let's not get ahead of ourselves because we're going to be listening to this. But there was Carol Kirkendall was also involved.
Yeah,
the manager of Salt and Pepper or something.
Well, so was Daryl. It was CD Enterprises, Carol and Daryl, and they were both Washington D.C. promoters, and Luther Vandross is another one that they promoted, and the managers of Salt and Pepper and all that. And so they both, got involved. I dragged them in kicking and screaming to do this. I got some financing together. And, I don't want to get ahead of myself, as you said, but, once they saw the Triple Mania in Mexico City, they were sold on it. Not Carol. She wasn't with us, but Daryl.
Yeah,
was
yeah,
he really
that trip probably had to be instrumental in getting Daryl excited and seeing what this actually could be, and seeing that crazy crowd, and of course there hadn't been any major shows with Lucha promoted in the United States at all. So this was kind of innovative. It was like I said, you were a visionary, and I know that previous to this appearance that we're about to listen to, I knew you were down there, and I was kind of, Marsh, you remember from listening to shows, I was worried about Ron down there because of, the potential of rioting and stuff. And I was like, because I didn't hear from you for a few days, and I'm like, geez, where is he? What's going on?
Yeah, he was pretty concerned on the tapes. Yeah.
Oh, you have me. Wait a minute.
No, it's like the week before you came on, you were, the match had taken place or whatever. And I'm like, I didn't hear from Ron. He went down to Mexico. Who knows what happened down there? Because I knew the results by, obviously.
Before I went to Mexico, we had a meeting at the, was the hotel, where was it? The one in Times Square, near
the Marquis, the Marriott Marquis.
The Marriott Marquis. And that's where, we met Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yes. Wasn't that the same time? Yeah, he came in because we were doing the tour of Southeast Asia. You were doing all the contracts with the guys. We were on the phone with the Ultimate Warrior, and he tried to hold me up for even more money.
Right. That was later, I believe. I'm talking about before I went to Mexico City for the Triple Mania show. Before I went to that, we had a meeting in because Jake went with us. Remember, Jake went with Daryl and myself and the interpreter that we had on the plane. But before that, we had to meet him. Yeah. And I don't remember if Pena was there or not. I think were you not at that meeting?
I was there. It was not Pena though. Pena was not there.
It was not Pena at that one. But Jake. I don't know that was one of his better moments.
There's a lot of those. My goodness.
No,
but anyway.
I just detected this automatic hostility, towards lawyers, which I could understand. Again, I'm not, the cookie cutter profile of that.
No, you're not. Absolutely not. But anyway, we're going to go back 30 years, Marsh, and why don't you take it from here, and let's have Ron, for the first time since May the 8th, 1993, listen to some of these historic clips now.
Yeah, I want to set this up a little bit, and I want to clarify one thing, just because this is we are talking about wrestling 30 years ago, and just because I was curious when I very first heard him come on. You're an actual lawyer, correct? Like, you're a real lawyer. This wasn't like fake lawyer.
I didn't just play one in wrestling,
Exactly. And I just think it's important to clarify that, because sometimes it's all like, oh yeah, this is a guy doing that.
Everything, everything's a work, right? But no, not everything.
Now, Ron is definitely an entertainment lawyer.
And by the way,
major clients in New York.
One more thing, John. When to just backtrack for a second, because a flood of memories are coming back. I remember when I first called your show, and we first were getting to know each other a little bit. I got a call back from someone I felt was a really obnoxious character who called me, and his name was Vince Russo, I believe. He called me at the office because I had left a message for you or something, and I remember like he didn't know who I was or anything, but there was no reason for him to know. But and he didn't know I was calling from my office. And it was like 7:30 in the evening or whatever it was, and I remember he asked me in a way he was like, "How old are you?" Like, what are you, a child? Are you a moron? Are you whatever? How old are you? Like that. It was just wow.
That was 92. It had to be then. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We do have 3 clips, just so we have consistency's sake for where we're going with this. The opening clip, the first one, is only 3 or so minutes. It's about you going down there, being glad you survived, and kind of breaking down what the matches were. We pause there so you guys can reminisce on anything you need to. The second clip is strictly about Jake, how Jake got involved, how deeply he was involved, him getting interviewed that I believe you started to talk about. A lot of that is in there. And then the final clip is a little bit longer, but it's basically, here's how the show went and here's how I got out alive, effectively, right? So we'll start now with the first one, which is basically you getting in the studio on a mic for the first time since the event.
Ron Skoler is here with me. Ron, I guess we've been working together for almost a year approximately now, right?
That's right.
You're a wrestling fan, also an entertainment attorney right here in the Big Apple.
Yep.
And Lucha Libre aficionado. I guess you call it that?
Yes.
A big Lucha Libre fan. Last week, you went down to Mexico City for the AAA's big anniversary show, Triple Mania 1, and you had a good time.
Yeah, it was a great time, and I'm glad that I survived it to come on your show, John, and talk to the people about it, because it got extremely wild.
Yeah.
But it was great. For those who don't know about Lucha Libre, it's shown on Galavision on Sunday nights from 7:30 to 10 o'clock, and you really ought to check it out if you can see it. I think it's also on Channel 41 in the New York area, like real late Thursday night, like 1 in the morning or something like that. So if you don't know what we're talking about, that might, give you some idea. You should definitely check it out. Anyway, there's a new wrestling organization based in Mexico City called AAA, or as they call it, AAA. And this was the 1-year anniversary of the formation of the AAA, or AAA, that took place on April 30th. At the Plaza de Toros in Mexico City, which is a huge bull ring. It holds 45,000 people. And believe me, it was sold out legitimately. 45,000 people plus 5,000 people outside who they had to call the police to disperse. Okay, so in other words, they had to turn away roughly twice the people that showed up for the Paramount show in New York for WCW, to put it into some kind of perspective. Anyway, 45,000 people. It was a triple main event. There were 8 matches on the card. The show went on for 4 hours, and nobody was bored for even 1 second. It was the most exciting, most colorful, most intense wrestling show that I've ever seen.
And of course, the main event was one of which we had Conan here in the studio back in March, and he is like the national hero of Mexico.
Well, he about half the people were for Conan, and the other half were for Cien Caras.
Oh, is it split up like that, 50-50?
It was split up like that. A lot of people were not for Conan because Conan is not a Mexican. Conan is Cuban, and Cien Caras is a Mexican.
Okay.
So I would say that the younger people, like teenagers, teenage girls in particular, they love Conan because he has that rock star look. But the kind of older fans and the ones that were more nationalistic were for Cien Caras.
Well, traditionally down there also, the fans don't necessarily cheer for a babyface or a heel or a rudo.
Right. They call the heels or the bad guys are known as rudos, and the good guys or the scientific wrestlers are called technicos. Yeah. Right. And the rudos are not like the rudos here. They love the rudos. They love the technicos. The rudos have their own fans with banners and flags and all kinds of, cheering sections for the rudos, and it's just an incredible event, and everybody put out 100%. Now, as I said, this was a triple main event, and the matches were as follows. It was Conan versus Cien Caras in the main event. That was a loser must retire match.
So that's how we started off the show that day. A good background for the fans out there who may have not been familiar with the La AAA, and it was a good setup, Ron.
Yeah, memories are flooding back. It was an amazing match where the loser had to retire, and Conan was counted out of the ring. Cien Caras threw him out of the ring, but there was interference by Jake the Snake, who came in and beat up Mascarita Sagrada, a midget. And that created a lot of heat. Yeah. And Conan was counted out. But Jake, there's a lot of heat.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in the second clip, but I have a couple questions for you. Now, at this time, because of the result of that match where Conan had to retire, and the only way really to get the revenge is to wrestle in the United States. Now, how far along, I don't remember specifically, but was there a deal in place at that time when you went to Mexico?
No, there was talk, there was interest, there was a desire, to do something. But I'll tell you what really shocked me is I remember being there. I think it was either the day of the show or the day before the show, and we were talking to Pena, and it was me and Daryl and Pena, and we said, we'd like to do something, and maybe do a show in LA. We'd like to do a show in LA. And Pena goes something like, okay, well, how about like in 2 months or something like. It was like I was like, what? It was I don't know how many, I forget, but it was shortly thereafter. It was just a few months later, you know. And which makes sense because there was a lot of heat, emanating from that. But I was shocked at like, what, like now, like we got to, we're really going to do this. And
but he was in all the way, like right from the beginning. He's like, I'm going to go. We're going to go to the United States, and like apparently he found the right partners to bring him there.
Yeah, Antonio Pena was great. He was, to me, like the Walt Disney of Mexican wrestling, or his wrestling in general. He was an amazingly creative guy.
Yeah, he was. And Konnan certainly saw that when Pena started AAA, and the talent that was assembled in such a quick period of time to build AAA was incredible. But this is where it all started, really. I mean, and then before you know it, you're going to LA, and we're all going out there for this amazing show, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But as we get Marsh back for the second clip that we're going to play, Marsh, set up this next one for us.
Yeah. So what was kind of fun about it is that, it's fun to watch you guys now talk 30 years later, because this is why that cut abruptly, because immediately Ron starts going into the Jake, and you're like, hold on, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
And then you set up the Jake spot, and then we go through it. So this is all about Jake's involvement, what made him such a hot heel, and the stuff he was doing out there.
And before we play the clip, we also want to let everybody that watches our YouTube channel, and that's youtube.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight. For that video version, Marsh has actually found that match, that main event, and we're going to insert that clip into the YouTube version so everyone can get a chance to see it.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to do it in its entirety, or at least bits and pieces while you're talking about it.
You're the editor. You're the creative director. It's up to you, my friend.
So here it is. Here's Ron covering Jake's involvement.
Yeah, what we're going to do, because the fans out there are not very familiar with Lucha.
Okay.
But this main event has repercussions which involve American wrestling, because Jake the Snake Roberts has entered this federation. And Jake is just everybody knows who Jake Roberts is and what he's done in the past. He was there down in Mexico several weeks ago. They did an angle where he was in the hotel or something, and he saw Konnan just leading up and just challenging Konnan or mocking him and the Mexicans. And he was there, and you were sitting right by Jake when he was introduced before this match.
Yes.
Tell us what happened.
Well, leading up to it a little bit, Jake the Snake Roberts, when you say he entered the Federation, boy, did he enter the Federation. He is the biggest villain in Mexico. Jake Roberts, okay, about a month before this match, he did an interview, or a confrontation, I should say, with Konnan in a hotel room, in which they got into a very heated argument, in which Jake made some, very nice, you might say, type of comments worthy of the UN, where he was saying that that everything about Mexico is inferior, including their wrestling, and you talk about the Alamo. After all, that was your great victory. It was 154 Texans and 5,000 Mexicans, and that's what you talk about. And everything else about your country and your wrestling in particular is second-rate compared to the United States, and things like that would endear him to the Mexican people. Then, about 2 weeks later, which is about 2 weeks before the big show, Jake was on a tour of Europe, and they sent a film crew to interview him. Now, the female reporter who interviewed him, Jake thought, was part of the AAA broadcast team. Turned out she was a serious political journalist, and she was interviewing Jake, and Jake was giving her the basic storyline about, hey, everything about Mexico is second rate, your wrestling is second rate, it's boring, Mexico is a third world country, which it is, but nobody wants to hear that down there. And it's also a beautiful country. And everybody hated him. And Jake saw that this woman was getting angry and angry and angry. He thought she was terrific. And then after the interview, he found out that she was taking it seriously. And he went up to her and he found out that she was a political journalist covering this for a serious newspaper that was, the equivalent of the New York Times in Mexico. And then he tried to explain it to her, and the more he tried to explain, listen, this is just to build up heat for a wrestling match, the more and more incredulous and angry she became. So anyway, this of course aired on, both angles aired on Mexican television.
And I'm sure she didn't give him a favorable review.
No, not at all. She hated him.
So he came into the match, he came into that bull ring filled with the Mexicans.
Hating him.
Already hating him.
And the people there brought Mexican flags that they were waving. Nobody expected Jake to be there.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a really cool backstory.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, when you say something like that on national TV with a political reporter, and the people see it, and then of course the dude shows up for Triple Mania, of course his life is going to be in danger in that bull ring, and of course the people that he was with also had to be in a little bit of danger, Ron.
Well, they also introduced him in the bull ring, and he went into the middle of the bull ring. At first people were cheering, some people, and then he said some things. He said a few comments that were then interpreted by what was his name, Rivera.
Arturo Rivera.
Yeah, right. We interpret, and they started booing, and then Jake grabbed his crotch in the middle of the ring and stuff, and it was really like adding insult to injury.
Wow. I mean, at that point, before we'll get into the main event and the escape and all of that, but
when escape with one shoe.
Yeah, well, you're sitting with Daryl, and I don't think Pena obviously was running the show, so he wasn't sitting with you guys.
But Jake was sitting with us until
Jake was with you.
Yeah, so people saw that those are Jake's friends.
But was Daryl getting it as you guys were sitting there? Was he saying like, yeah, I think this would work?
You mean about Jake's angle or about
the whole promotion coming to the U.S., seeing what the potential would be?
He saw 45,000 people there, and he just he found religion. He was like, oh my God, wow, this is amazing. Look, he just saw 45,000 people in one place, and it was like, what more would it take to win over a promoter?
Yeah, exactly. He saw money, basically, as everybody did, because it was kind of like, wow.
But he wasn't, he got to appreciate it from, he got to appreciate the lucha, but not at that time. Later, he developed an appreciation and a taste for it, and he got more into it. I started because I loved, the Mexican wrestling to begin with. That's why I got into it. I didn't expect it to be a business. I thought originally I was just watching it as a fan, and I just enjoyed it. And it was, a distraction, and it was escapism, and it was, it was enjoyable. It was entertaining. All of that. I didn't expect to get into that, but then I thought, like, wow, this stuff is amazing. Is anybody doing this? Maybe there's something here that we can do. And that's what happens. I get into something because it's fun, and then it becomes a business. And, usually, it works out. But then it's, it's not fun anymore. And I got to look for something else because, there's a lot of stress in this life,
Oh, there's without a doubt. So we have another clip, Marsh, and this is kind of the, the ending of the main event and Ron's attempted escape.
This is the last one. This is a little bit longer, about 5 minutes, 45 seconds ish. But this is the last tail end of the interview, complete with your goodbyes and stuff. But yeah, this is the heart of everything that was going on that you were watching more than front row, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, here is a 4-match card. We're sitting there. We had good seats, about 5 rows back from ringside in this 45,000 seat packed house. And after the fourth match, Jake comes down, and he sits about 4 or 5 seats away from where I'm sitting. And he's introduced to the crowd. Now, I'm not fluent in Spanish, but luckily I was with someone who is. And she explained what happened. Jake Roberts went into the ring, and they announced him as being a former WWF superstar and being a top wrestler from the United States who just returned from a tour of Europe, and how he feels that everything about Mexico is inferior, and their wrestling is inferior, and he doesn't care for their people, and that it's a third world country. And the announcer kept repeating and repeating all of the things that he had said, and even probably embellished some, to the point where the crowd was cursing him and saying things in Spanish that we couldn't repeat in English.
They were worked up in a frenzy.
They were in a frenzy. They were throwing things. They were waving Mexican flags. This was for real. This was real animosity. This was, as they say, a shoot, at least on the fans' part. Jake Roberts, trying to be a diplomatic person that he is, grabbed his crotch. Can I say that on the radio?
Yeah, you can say that, sure.
Okay, to the crowd in front of 45,000 people to show that he's got either nerves of steel or he's insane. One of the two. He then came and sat down with us again. At that point, debris was coming from every which way, and it wasn't such a choice seat any longer.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
A dangerous seat.
A dangerous seat. Now, then the wrestlers were introduced. Cien Caras is a famous Mexican wrestler. He's a rudo, but he's still greatly beloved by the fans. He would be kind of like a Ric Flair down there. Mm-hmm. Conan is like Sting down there. That's the best comparison I could give. And as soon as Conan got in the ring, he saw his arch nemesis, Jake Roberts, and he started, to say to Jake, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And they started taunting each other and using foul language towards each other and all this. Jake approached the ring and was taunting Conan. Then the match began, and Jake had to sit down. Then, midway through the match, again, Jake came up and started taunting Conan. Conan was getting distracted. Now, remember, this is a loser must retire match. Okay, and it was really, really a heated moment. Jake had to sit down yet a second time. Finally, Jake went up to the ring again. At this point, Cien Caras also turned against Jake because Jake was making all these anti-Mexican statements and all that. Jake hit Cien Caras. Mm-hmm. Cien Caras did not. We're telling the whole truth, the inside story. Did not sell the move. Mm-hmm. He hit him a second time. Again, he did not react. Jake Roberts then, in order to get the proper reaction, hit him a third time and legitimately broke his nose. Cien Caras' eyes rolled back in his head, and he was knocked down. And I don't know if he was knocked out, but he was out of it legitimately.
Wow.
At that point, now, the wrestlers there had seconds. Like before there's a duel, you have a second. Mm-hmm. And they had seconds down there. Cien Caras had a wrestler there to second him. And Conan had a midget as his second, Mascarita Sagrada. It was a great midget wrestler. Jake went up to the ring, picked up the midget, threw the midget across the ring, and DDT'd the midget. Okay?
I'm sure the crowd was...
The crowd was going crazy. It was as somebody once said, pandemonium breaking loose. For real. And at that point, Jake was fighting with Conan, who was outside the ring. Now, Conan is outside the ring fighting with Jake. Cien Caras is knocked out, for all intents and purposes, and the midget is injured. Okay, the referee comes and one of the referees comes and carries the midget out of the ring. Uh-huh. Okay, the referee ran into me and kicked me in the leg at that point. At which point I lost my shoe.
You were trying to escape.
We were trying to get out of there because
it was a riot.
They didn't love gringos at that moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened was Conan and Jake were fighting, and the referee was going to count to 20, which means 20. When he got to 18, Cien Caras made it back into the ring. But alas, Conan did not. Conan was counted out of the ring as a result of Jake the Snake Roberts, the hero of the Mexican, younger generation of wrestling fans, had to retire. He lost the match because of Jake's interference. Conan wept in the ring. It was a sad moment, my friends.
And a very exciting one, it seems.
It was a very exciting moment from what I saw of it.
I understand they're going to be showing highlights on the Galavision. If you're lucky enough to have Galavision on Sunday nights, check it out. They'll be showing highlights from this card. And I tell you, with Conan not being able to wrestle in Mexico right now, it would be pretty wise for them to carry their feud elsewhere.
Yes. If there's any promoter brave enough to book it.
Yeah. Well, wow, that's great, Ron. I appreciate you coming down here. Now, the main event there was just sounded like a super card. I appreciate you coming down and sharing that with us, because we were hoping last week. We were worried about you. We were saying, we knew you were down there. Once you didn't call in, it was like something happened. Jake is down there. There's a riot. Something's going on. So we were very worried about you when we didn't hear from you last week on the program. And I'm happy enough to have you safe back in the country.
Thank you.
Here at the show tonight, and you gave the fans the inside scoop. And
thank you. I'm happy to be back.
Radio is theater of the mind, and everybody out there knows what happened in Mexico. And I can't wait to see it on video. Thank you, Ron.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was obviously great to get that report from you right there at the scene. But this led to the alliance. It led to you forming IWC.
Yeah, with you.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We and then it was kind of like the promotion. Once everything was solidified, and it was August 28th, I believe, 1993, and at the LA Sports Arena in Los Angeles.
La Revancha.
So it was Cien Paris, Conan, and Jake. But leading up to it, Ron, I mean, your dealings, and now you're getting knee deep. Once the deal is solidified, and Carol and Daryl are in as promoters, and you're kind of like working hand in hand with Pena. Conan is involved, putting this majestic debut together. But there was, unbeknownst to everyone was worried about the ticket sales for that show in Los Angeles. And I guess there was a lot of worried people leading up to that event.
Yeah, none more than me.
Yeah, but it was like kind of like, I think the advance was what, 8,000 or something before the day before the show?
It was something like, I think it was like 6,500 or something like that as the day before. Something like that.
And everyone was worried.
Yeah, well, the place holds 17,000 and change. It was the sports arena in LA. We actually went above that. But I was told that as of that morning, there were lines like around the stadium.
Yeah, I guess the morning of the show is when everything changed. It's when because everyone said it was a walk-up crowd.
Well, that's what a Mexican crowd is. It's a walk-up crowd. I didn't know that because people were telling us, based on if this was a WWE show or WWF in those days, it would be if you had 6,000 ticket sales, you probably have 8,000 or 9,000 people in the building. And we're thinking, was that enough to break even? Can we do this? Whatever. Well, we had 18,000 people in the building, and we had 8,000 people turned away.
Yeah, it created a massive traffic.
I'll give you a story about if you want me to continue on that note.
Oh, absolutely, yes, please.
So there I am. I see you could curse on your show. So we were, it was the night of the show, and was standing there, in the arena. I'm standing there with Daryl, this guy Gerald Scott, who worked for him, and I was working with us, and I was, all these R&B guys from DC, that I'm doing this wrestling show with. So talk about diversity. So we're in there, and I'm like on top of the world. I'm like beaming. I'm so happy because I feel like vindicated. Like, here we are, it's a sellout. First night, first match, 18,000 people. We're turning away. We could have sold 26,000 tickets, and Daryl is just looking miserable. And I'm like, hey, what's up? He goes, not right now. No, just leave me alone for a minute. Not now. I'm like, what's wrong with him? So I said to Gerald, what's wrong with Daryl? He goes, you don't know how a promoter thinks. You don't know how a promoter. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, he'll tell you. You know how a promoter thinks. I said, okay, well, we've got a sellout here. I don't see how anybody could think anything differently. So then, like a few minutes later, I go over there. I say, Daryl, what's up? You look so unhappy. Why is this? And he says, you know why? because you're thinking, isn't it great? We sold 18,000 tickets, and I'm thinking I got 8,000 motherfuckers with money in their pocket, and I ain't got no second show. Well, right. This isn't James Brown at the Apollo. There's no second show. Friend. No, it's just like if there's a boxing match or something. There's no second show. Hey, let's do it again. Maybe this time the other guy will knock this guy out. It doesn't work that way.
No. And I guess that was kind of a difference of philosophy. I mean, that first show, the reviews it got, the attendance, the gate, which I believe out of all of the shows in 1993 box office, WrestleMania was number 1. SummerSlam was number 2, and La Revancha was the number 3 highest grossing show in 1993 in all of wrestling.
Really?
Yes.
So we had the third highest grossing show
for 1993 in America. Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
It opened up some eyes. It opened up some eyes for sure.
I guess. I mean, it opened up some eyes, and it opened some of the wrong eyes too. That's another story. With WCW and all of that.
All of that, yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll definitely get to that another time. But also as your relationship with AAA solidified, and of course other shows were booked, and you started bringing in some American talent. I know DDP was part of that, and there was also, I think, Louis Spicolli you brought in as Madonna's boyfriend, who was a young performer at the time.
Very, very tragic. Yeah.
Yes, and you developed a good relationship with the guys. Conan was there, and we got to see Rey Mysterio Jr. for the first time. This teenager who was just, to this day, one of the most historic figures in the entire world. So bringing him into the United States for that first big exposure certainly helped him and his, growing legacy even as a teenager. And it was really a spectacular time. My involvement in it and just the fact that I was able to kind of orchestrate connections, and that's kind of what I've did my entire career is, all right, maybe we can introduce this person to that person. And it all came together. And all the things I did in pro wrestling that night in August of 1993 is certainly one of my proudest. And to be associated with you was always a freaking pleasure, man. You were a straight shooter.
My pleasure too, John. I appreciate it because you really did put everybody together, and you were out there as the go-to guy, because of the radio show and the conventions and other things that you did, where you had all of this knowledge and all these resources and contacts, that were really invaluable.
It was a great night. I never forget being there and seeing Meltzer backstage and Mike Tenay, and all of these people were beyond excited on how this was going to be a mainstay in the United States.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised to hear that about Tenay, but I know that Dave Meltzer was into it.
Yeah. Well, Ron, I mean, this for me it's always a pleasure to see you, first of all. I mean, and the relationship that we've had for 30 years. Next time I'm up in New York, I'll be up at the end of August. I'd love to have dinner and just kind of hang with you.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I might be attacked any minute. Just a second. I may be under attack. I don't know if this is about to happen or not, but I think, oh my God. No. Oh my God, save me. Oh my God. No mas. My wife.
You still got a good collection of artifacts from back then.
Yeah. Oh my God! Wait a minute. She really fucked me up here. What am I gonna? No.
Whose mask was that? What character?
¿Dónde están todos los psycho locos?
I mean, I have a classic collection of matches. Hey, here's something. Here's the minis belt from IWC. We saved this. We were able to salvage that one. Cien Caras kept the heavyweight one. I don't know what happened after that, but this is the minis belt that was worn around the waist of the late great Espectrito, and Mascarita Sagrada. I don't know.
We've lost both of those guys, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're terrible. I was actually friendly with. They're both good guys. I was really friendly with Espectrito, and he was really a great guy. And what happened to him was just horrendous. He was murdered, really.
I know.
And here's something I'm very proud of too. I don't know if this show up or not, but this was given to me by Los Gringos Locos. I don't know if
Art Bar.
Yeah. We got Art Bar, Love Machine, Conan, and the late great Eddie Guerrero here. And it says here, AAA Mexico, and Tus Hijos, Los Gringos Locos, like your children, the Los Gringos Locos. So that's a nice thing that they gave me. They were like the top heel tag team, in Mexico at the time, and probably in LA as well. So this is one of the saved.
If anyone hasn't seen them, look for the old videos. I mean, Los Gringos Locos. I mean, that chemistry with Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero. I mean, you talk about dynamic.
They were great guys. Like I can't say enough about Eddie. Eddie was really a great guy. Yeah. Both of them, but I miss them. And Eddie was a spectacular, even better known up here, spectacular wrestler, great person. What can you say?
Yeah, we've lost so many of them. But Ron Skoler, I really want to thank you for your time today. I mean, it's been a pleasure to see you and reminisce with you about what happened on May 8th, 1993, man.
Where did it all go?
I know. Time flies.
Hey, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Marsh, you too, man.
All right.
Thanks. Can't wait to see this.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Ron.
Really cool.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow. I mean, yeah, that's really cool. I mean, that was kind of how it started, man. And it was a good run.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, it's really neat to find out how involved he was with AAA there. You know what I mean? Specifically, because we talked about it even with the Conan interview, and even when Terry Funk was on there, he was even saying like, you guys, he would be a fool not to be paying attention to what was happening in AAA because of how much was going on, Yeah. To know that Ron was such a part of that, it was really cool.
Yeah, it was an amazing time, and of course there were several other shows that were booked in Los Angeles, and then of course the debacle not on Ron's part, but on the WCW pay-per-view when Worlds Collide in 1994. It was a spectacular show, but even Eric Bischoff would admit they didn't do the right thing with that Mexican brand.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely got a lot of eyes on people we wouldn't have known otherwise, potentially, but that's not the only way it could have happened, for sure.
Yeah. Yep. I want to remind everybody as we tape this and get ready to cover, I guess, the morning. Do we have any other clips from the evening, or do we have the morning too? Okay.
We got a little bit of both. We can figure out how we're doing this.
Yeah. So once, what I do want to just kind of announce and remind everyone that we, of course, we haven't talked to you since we lost Superstar Billy Graham, and we are recording a special tribute to Superstar Billy Graham with George Napolitano and the person who wrote his book, Keith Elliott Greenberg. So that's going to be a good one too. So we got some good content upcoming. So I just wanted to plug that Superstar Billy Graham show, which we'll be recording and then releasing to everybody out there, not only on Patreon, but everywhere else. I look forward to that.
That's great.
On with the show, man.
Well, how about we do this? We'll stay focused on episode 216 because where we were.
Okay.
Right before Ron came on, we have one clip from Cactus Jack because this is the first time he's on since.
That's right, and the injury with Vader. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is a cool clip where, again, this was a little bit of a longer interview. So for Patreons, you could hear the whole thing. This is the tail end of the interview where he really kind of focuses more on his goals and coming back.
Okay.
Because you left a lot of people out there just devastated is the only word I could think of that comes to mind regarding your future. And we're happy to hear that you're feeling better. And we can be patient. We will be patient. And believe me, when you come back into the ring and you make another appearance, especially up here in the Northeast, the fans will come out in droves to welcome you with open arms back to the wrestling business.
But let me ask you this. Are fans out now, as you know, when you really analyze the Cactus Jack style, what is it? I mean, there's not really a lot of power moves. Like I said before, I've always compensated for the fact that I can't jump high by jumping off of high things.
Mm-hmm.
That's a style that I created myself, and it seems to have worked. But like we've said before, and everyone's said many times, it's a style based on high risks that I was always willing to take. But now, even if you're a big-time gambler and you're betting on your horse, once that horse breaks its leg, you're not so bound to vote for Sea Hero in the Preakness. If Sea Hero were to break his leg, you wouldn't be so bound to bet on him in the Preakness. Now, Cactus Jack, for all intents and purposes, has a broken leg. I'm a horse that can't run. Will the people out there be willing to see a Cactus Jack who doesn't take risks, or will promoters want to hire a Cactus Jack who doesn't take risks and therefore isn't as exciting or as successful? Once the risks overcome, normal thinking, at least the way I think normally, then I'm not so sure there's a spot for me in the sport.
Are you saying that when you do come back, you're going to tone it down?
No, I'm saying that if I can't come back the way I want to, I
Yeah.
might as well just stay home.
Yeah.
Because I'm not athletically blessed, and I'm not. I don't have all the right connections. That I pretty much got by on the fact that I was an exciting performer, somebody who was an asset to the company. I don't think there will be a spot in the fans' hearts or the promoters' minds for a Cactus Jack who can't do the things he used to do. So that's it's. I feel like this is not going to be a big setback, but if there's another injury where I can't get up and walk away, I think everyone will have to say bye-bye to Cactus Jack.
Well, we're hoping that does not happen. We just hope for your speedy return, and we hope things will work out with you. Because this business has been enhanced by the presence of Cactus Jack over the last several years, and it would be wrestling's loss if you come back and are not able to perform up to the way that you had always performed before inside the ring.
Well, it's led me to do a lot of thinking. I've got a wife and I've got a baby, and I am the provider for this family.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do I do? I've been able to make a very good living the past couple of years. As you know, when you're in Memphis and you're world class, you don't make a very good living. And once you're there, it's hard to give it up. This is the first time I've had to sit back and really seriously think about what I do with life without wrestling. Now, maybe there'd be a spot. I was a manager for some time last year, and I thought I did very well. Maybe there'd be a spot there. Maybe there'll be something else, or maybe it's time altogether to put the wrestling behind me and get on and do something else.
Well, we hope that's not the case. That's all we can say to you.
Well, thanks, John.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. At least the fans out there who have been wondering and worrying about your health are reassured a little bit, knowing that you are up and talking, you're up and about, and we shipped a big package of letters to you from fans from all across the Northeast, and our good friend Georgianne Macropolis has also got a number of cards and letters that she sent down to you, and well, at least over the next week or so, you could have the opportunity to read what the fans are thinking, and I'm sure your heart will be warmed by that.
Well, thanks, John. But just to summarize the way I feel, there's no doubt in my mind that I will be back sometime soon. But if that comeback doesn't entail, the things that I like to do and the things I need to do, then I think we'd call it quits after that. But I'm counting on coming back at 100% with all guns firing, bang, bang, and we'll see what happens.
Well, Cactus, we wish you the best of luck, and hopefully we'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks, John.
Okay, good night.
Bye.
Wow, that's really so interesting to hear his headspace. I mean, what he was thinking at that time in his life.
To me, it's so fascinating given that it's 93. This is several years before he takes the biggest risks of his career. Like,
yeah,
he has not even begun taking risks as far as we know, right? As far as us, like, and I say we as like the younger WWE fans who I didn't know Cactus. I knew Mankind. So I was seeing that stuff. And then to think that 3 or 4 years before I even got wind of him, he was like, did I just have a career-ending injury?
Mm-hmm.
And then he takes those risks.
Yeah. Well, obviously he came back being able to do what he needed to do as a performer and as someone who eventually became the hardcore legend.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that obviously he continued on. But at that time, he was in a place that he didn't know if he could do it any longer, if he could work up to those expectations he had for himself, which even a 50% watered down version of Cactus Jack in 1993 was still entertaining, but he wanted more.
Yeah. And I loved hearing him reminisce a little bit about being a manager just a year before, because we'd covered that as well. And thinking about what happened to Cactus after he wasn't able to be Mankind. He came back as commissioner and GM, and he did do some on-screen talking and did very well in those roles too. So,
and to this day, he's still out there, and his legacy lives on. And he's hosting the WWE Hidden Treasure Show on A&E, and he's got that incredible podcast every week with Conrad Thompson, and he does personal appearances, and he's still involved in multiple charities, and still the great family man, and doing everything and staying relevant decades after he kind of called it a day.
Yeah. And don't forget his cameo. He's always got to plug that cameo. I believe it's / Real Mick Foley.
Yeah.
Those are great.
He's actually, I think he's got the record of any sports personality with money generated from cameo.
Yeah, but it's not fair because he's 4 different people. He's Dude Love, Mankind.
Yeah. He's Mick Foley and Cactus Jack. He's got all.
Yeah, he's got to divide it by 4 for it to be fair.
Yes. Oh, what a great guy, and a great follow-up to the interview we did with Skoler.
Yeah, fantastic.
What else do we got?
Let's see. Well, I always like to pull extra clips if I can. I thought it was interesting. You had Georgianne Macropolis on. You had Gary Langdon on from the mat, and they were just on plugging their
newsletters.
But I think that if we're going to play one of these clips, because there's kind of almost too many, I think, this time around, Larry Spitz came on. And I thought it was a really cool issue he had. And I wanted to play this clip because it's only a couple minutes long. And you're also rapidly running out of time. You only get like 7 minutes to take calls. And you try to go through as many as you can. And I did pull that just in case we happen to have time, the full 7 minutes, because it's fun to hear you rapid fire through. I love when someone comes on, so they got 2 questions, you say shoot, they ask 1, and you hang up before you answer. Yeah. It's great. But this is Larry having a pretty cool issue that I thought was fun to listen to. And I just like Larry.
Oh, yeah. Expert at what he did.
212-477-5610. We're going to bring on one of our sponsors here for a quick second, Mr. Larry Spitz from LNS.
Hey, how you doing, John?
How you doing, Larry?
And I'd like to say hello to all the Pro Wrestling Spotlight listeners.
Which are a lot of them are your customers.
Many of them are. As
right.
a matter of fact, I have a very interesting situation. It seems that a new competitor decided to open up and use our name. Sort of, I guess, like a wrestling angle, you know? It's pretty funny.
So there was a second LNS Comics which you wanted to clear up, which is not affiliated with you.
Yeah, we just wanted to clear it up that they are actually not affiliated with us. And actually, I wanted to also give a little plug of thanks to one of my friends, Brian, out there, who actually informed me first of this little deviousnness of these people. But I guess when you want to, I guess as your name builds up in the trade, people want to try and jump up and try and take on your name.
Okay.
Well, in a way, I think of it as a sincere form of flattery. However, we do protect our name, so unfortunately, I do not recommend the LNS Comics that is now opening up in another location. However, feel free to, if you want to try them out, hey, that's fine. However, they are not affiliated with LNS Comics. I just wanted to clear it up because we had so many of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight listeners call us up and ask us if it was a second location.
Okay, when you do have a second location,
and
if that ever happens,
will be forthcoming actually,
and that will be announced here at the program. Now, Larry, I just wanted to wanted to clear that up because we don't want anyone going to the wrong LNS.
That's true.
And of course, this you have all those Hasbro dolls are in, all the new series is in.
Sure, the new ones are in, as well as we constantly get old ones in, your old LJNs. And we got confirmation the European dolls are on their way.
Great.
It's been taking a while, but the Galoobs are finally looking like they're about to ship, so anybody interested in the rare Europeans should give us a call soon, because we're going to have full stock on that, because, of course, we need it in time for the convention.
Yes, the convention will be announcing those dates rapidly in the next few weeks here. Okay, and of course, LNS, if you want to give Larry a call, that number is 516-489-9636. They're located at 1379 Jerusalem Avenue, exit 24 North, off Southern State. Make your first left turn to LNS and stop in and pick up that free video list. Larry, listen, we got to run. Thanks for your time tonight.
John, I do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
No problem. Okay.
An Imposter LNS Comics opening up.
You got to add LNS to the list. You got Undertaker, Diesel, Racer, Doink, and now LNS. All had fake versions.
Yeah, I mean, what did we come to in 1993? But he was in. Go ahead.
What's interesting is that LNS stood for Larry and Steve.
That's right.
So what did the fake LNS say theirs was?
I don't know.
Limited and special comics?
I don't know. Yeah, what a controversy. And I guess he was tipped off by his friend Brian, which could have been maybe Brian from Long Beach.
That's what I was wondering. I was really hoping they would say not necessarily the address, but the area. So they say, oh, if you see it out here in Long Beach or Jersey or whatever, it's not us. But you guys both really, I think, made a point to let's not put over anything about who and where, but just specifically focus on who we are and where we are.
Wow.
So, because if he said Long Beach for 100%, I was on board.
Imitation's the purest form of flattery, or whatever they say. Whatever the saying is. But in this case, it was somebody that was plagiarizing a well-established business that a lot of wrestling fans counted on.
Yeah, and it didn't hurt him. He stayed in business for a long, long time, and he had such a nice demeanor about it.
Yeah, he didn't go wild. He didn't go crazy like I would have.
No, he was like smiling and laughing. He goes, it's kind of cool. Thanks for thinking we're so successful. It's like, yeah, you'd have lost it.
Oh, I would have lost it for sure.
Well, I mean,
I
guess we
a
have
lot less things. Yeah.
As is evident by everything that happened with you and Russo. There's a lot of reasons. But
yeah.
Let's go back to the morning show, and if we have time, we'll revisit the callers. But it was just kind of a fun thing, and I didn't know how much time we were going to have with Ron or all that stuff. And that conversation went so well that I feel fine kind of leaving some of these off for the patrons.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the full shows are always on patreon.com/John Arezzi. So
yeah, I like to over prepare. What we got on the morning show, we did open up with a capsule with Don Liable. And then there's a little bit of talk after it because Hogan was in Japan and talking about the IWGP title versus the WWF title. And it was just interesting because it's something we don't hear about much nowadays. And when you hear about it, then you go, that seems like it should have been a much bigger deal long term.
Yeah.
Lots happening this week, a very busy news week, so let's get right to the capsule. Well, it was belt versus belt being presented, but not on the line in Japan this past Monday. World Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion Hulk Hogan took part on New Japan Wrestling's mega show that drew an estimated 55,000 fans. Hogan pinned International World Grand Prix titleist the Great Muta. Sting, he went to a no contest with Scott Norton, as Norton, the match was stopped because he was bleeding. Jushin Thunder Liger, surprisingly, although in a non-title match, came out on the losing end to Tiger Mask, and coming out of retirement in tag team play was Antonio Inoki. The WWF ran back-to-back television tapings this past week, first in Worcester, Massachusetts at the Auditorium. Highlights for the Superstars show were Mr. Hughes, now managed by Harvey Whippleman, pinning Owen Hart. Several new faces from the USWA made their debut. It was the Harlem Knights receiving a tryout. Scotty Flamingo appeared as a manager called Johnny Polo, handling the chores to Atomic Bomb, who you surely are more familiar with as the Night Stalker, as of late from Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Also, Bonnie Blackstone conducted live interviews and will be handling the event center assignments. The following night, matches taped for Wrestling Challenge in Portland, Maine. It was Mr. Hughes winning over Kamala in a King of the Ring tournament match. The Tasmaniac had his tryout, and Jerry the King Lawler debuted his interview segment, The King's Court. Now, 3 courts were taped with Luna Vachon, Yokozuna, and the Giant Gonzalez as guests. Another angle concerning the King was his interviewing Australian professional football player Colin Scott. Now, Scott let it be known that he wants to be a wrestler, and you guessed it, Scott and Lawler ended up duking it out with each other. Well, get a tape, program your VCRs. You will definitely, most certainly not want to miss, and you want to keep a copy of next week's Flair for the Gold segment on World Championship Wrestling. Nature Boy Rick's guest will be Brian Pillman and Steve Austin, and when this tape is aired next Saturday, the Blondes really will be needling Flair from everything about his age to, well, you name it, they're going to be getting on his case, so you're going to want to keep a copy of that. Also, Terry Funk was in Japan a few days back, and he survived an exploding mind match with Onita for Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling. Onita came away with the win. Checking out today's promotional schedule, WCW is in Springfield, Illinois. The WWF has 2 shows booked, one in the Detroit suburb of Auburn Hills, Michigan, and the other being in Indianapolis, Indiana. Over in Southampton, the IWCCW comes to the island, and like clockwork, the USWA runs in Nashville. Finally, from the scrapbooks, a dozen years ago on this date, in May 1981, it was in Kansas City, Kansas, that J.J. Dillon defeated Terry Taylor. Nick Bockwinkel pinned Ivan Putski in Houston, Texas, and joined WWF action in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with King Kong Mosca pinning Dominic DeNucci. For this week in pro wrestling, I'm Don Liable reporting. Capsule time, 10:10. And John, just a couple quick notes. This past Monday in Memphis' Mid-South Coliseum, Papa Shango won the USWA title from Jerry Lawler. SummerSlam 93 will take place August 30th in Auburn Hills, Michigan. Tickets on sale June 28th. And something that you and I spoke about yesterday, Hulk Hogan, after his match in Japan, referring to the WWF belt as like a Honda as compared to the IWGP belt as being the Rolls Royce and being the real World Championship belt.
That certainly is a surprising comment from Hogan. Now, I don't know what this guy's all about. You know, he's representing the World Wrestling Federation and going over to a foreign country and saying that the title is not really the world title. You know, he should be claiming that his title is the world title.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on?
Yeah, you always have to be true to your team, and going over there, maybe it's the salary that he's reportedly getting that he wants to keep his popularity more there or stir up some heat or whatever for more matches, but certainly you don't demean your own title there.
Well, you know, this past week on Entertainment Tonight, they did a whole feature, an inside story on Hulk Hogan filming that movie of the week, whatever it is, down in Florida. And Hogan is like, man, I wish I was doing this 10 years ago, you know. It was an interesting segment, and Hogan's heart lies, I believe, in the entertainment world. That's what he's trying to segue into. But, you know, show some dignity to the title.
Yeah. Wow. That would have been a much bigger story today, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd have been huge. When I was hearing that, I was like, why does this not ring a bell? Like, I know I wasn't actively, obviously, we talked about it just a minute ago. I wasn't that big into this stuff, but at a certain point, I did start digging into things. The fact that this didn't bubble up over and over again. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Disrespecting his championship.
Yeah, like while he's holding it.
While he's holding it.
It's nuts, man.
He's a real American.
Do you think... I wish I knew more about what went wrong with his Hollywood career, because it looked like he had a lot of access. He was in a bunch of things.
Yeah, but the box office didn't translate into a lot of dollars. I mean, he did have a one or two marginal hits, but he also had a shitload of clunkers that didn't make money. And no matter who you are, if you're not making money for the studios, you're not getting opportunity.
And even then, you don't have to stop making money. Pauly Shore has been on record before saying that he doesn't understand why Hollywood stopped calling him, because none of his movies ever failed. He didn't have a single flop. Every single movie he ever did made much more than they put in budget-wise. So there's also a certain point where Hollywood just says, we're moving on anyways.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you get in disfavor, or, you know, studios talk, people talk. You know, it could be a number of things why people get like blacklisted in a way.
Yeah. Because it did seem like he was really pushing hard for I'm going Hollywood, and then he didn't go Hollywood till he turned Hollywood in WCW.
Hollywood Hogan. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know, just interesting.
Yes.
So a name that has not come up very much, but all of a sudden had a solid like 10 minutes with you, maybe longer, was Billy Jack Haynes.
Yeah. Yes.
Did you have much of a relationship with him?
It was more around the time of the scandals. I mean, I didn't have a relationship with him outside of that time period, except for when he reached out and he was starting a new promotion. So, of course, I said, yeah, you could come on and talk about that. I just didn't want to talk about the scandals anymore.
Yeah, he does bring him up a little bit, so I have a clip of that. But I also felt like the way you guys talked about the scandals was a little different. It wasn't as, I don't want to say pitchforky, but it wasn't as like, it didn't feel as scandalous. It talked about a little more in retrospect because it's.
I think we were all over it. We were all tired of it. We didn't want to talk about it anymore. It was dragging the business down. It was dragging, the people who were actively involved in it, dragging them down. And Billy, of course, had his allegations and his speculation on what was happening. So he was a big part of that feeding frenzy with the press. And it really hurt his career as well because he couldn't really get a lot of work. And then decides to start his own deal.
Yeah, it was like Rip City Wrestling, and they were going to run somewhere between 4 and 8 shows a year. And he talks about that. And some of the names are the same names we've been hearing on the independent circuit that were big, like Jake the Snake and all of that. But I did pull a little clip here because I thought, I haven't heard much of an interview you've done with him that was just about him. But go ahead.
We can play it. Sure, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like that you're getting back into it. I know you had a real rough time last year when you were trying to get back in, and that sad story of that trip that you made to the TV tapings, that you mentioned on our show last year, and that was just a horrendous experience for you.
Well, that's all part of business. In 1988, I broke away from the WWF, and I'm glad I did. I left a $200,000 a year job. But, I was becoming addicted to codeines, and I realized I was sick, and I got some help, and I'm fine now. And as far as Vince McMahon goes, he wasn't offering no help to anybody. Every time there was a drug problem, he'd cover it up or fire you and deny it. And I think that, to me, I think they've cleaned up their act a little bit, and I think this has helped wrestling overall. And so maybe it was a positive this all happened.
Well, certainly the tests that have been undergoing, and I think it certainly has helped the business, eliminating some of the stuff and making people more aware and making everyone kind of look behind their shoulders, because you have a force of wrestling journalists out there that are watching everything that's going on. And, of course, mainstream media is keeping a watchful eye as well on the business, and it can only better the business. But everything you got going out there sounds great. And if there's anything we can do for you here on this end of it, maybe even once you have your date solidified, and maybe we could get a travel agent involved and do a weekend trip out there.
I like that very much, and I wanted to compliment you on going on the Donahue show last year. I thought you'd done an excellent job. You're a stand-up guy, along with Meltzer, and you tell it like it is, and that's what we're doing with our radio show, shooting from the hip and not giving no lip. And I think you need to be complimented. You put your neck on the line, really. I had a few death threats out here, coming out, speaking the truth. But you talk the truth, that's what happens sometimes. You step on somebody's toes. But I just wanted to give you that compliment over your radio show. You're doing a great job, man.
Well, thank you very much, and we wish you the best of luck with your program as well. And death threats, nonetheless, you're still with us, and now you're going to be, and now you're going to be promoting out there, which is a great thing for all the fans. This business needs promoters out there doing new stuff, bringing in new ideas, and this business will thrive and survive into the 1990s.
Well, you got to get back to the hardcore wrestling. You got to leave the cartoon crap to the WWF, because to me they have ruined the business. They've drawn a lot of money. You can't argue with that. I made a lot of money with them, but I think they've slapped a lot of fans in the face, and I think the fans are kind of they took that offensively. I've had a lot of very negative calls against the WWF and more positive to the WCW, John, but sometimes the WCW follows that same pattern too. I wish they'd break away from it, because they've got a lot better promotion.
I think WCW's situation has been a case of no direction. They just haphazardly go into a direction, they change it, they start an angle, they don't finish it. I just the two major promotions, in my opinion, are two fat cats. There needs to be the young promoters getting into this business and changing some ideas, some younger minds at the helm with ideas that are 1990s ideas rather than stagnation, which has been really been the case in the two major federations for at least this whole decade so far. That's really that's really something that will be done. I feel there's a lot of young minds out there, and there's a lot of young promotions starting up, and I think it's going to be good for the business overall. Now, I understand you got a radio show you got to get to do. Are you at the studio now?
No, I'm not. I'm over at my office in Northeast Portland. I want to say one more thing, if I could, John.
No problem.
I think that all the, I've been wrestling a dozen years now, and I think the greatest fans are in New York, in that Eastern Coast area. And I think that your show does a lot for professional wrestling, and I think that the fans have been slapped in the face in the past, and they're not going to take it no more. And I think what you do and what what the other radio shows do is give the professional wrestling fan who pays the ticket for the promoter and the wrestler an insight to what's really happening in professional wrestling. I think it's mandatory.
Yeah, well, we certainly enjoy what we do, and we love bringing information to the fans, and I know you're going to enjoy yourself on the air because it's an exciting thing to be able to talk to the fans every week and find out where their heads are at and what they want to see and give them a voice in this business. And believe me, the promotions, the two major promotions may try to deny our existence out there, but we are here, and we're here to stay.
That's right, getting bigger every day.
That's right. Well, listen, Billy, I will speak to you later on, and you have the best of luck with that new radio show and the venture out there.
Okay, God bless you and everybody out there in the East Coast, man.
Okay, thanks a lot, Billy.
Okay, bye-bye, brother.
Okay.
Do you remember hearing much about Rip City Wrestling? Did it go for a while?
No, I don't remember anything about it, actually.
Yeah.
It could have gone, could have started up and then folded, but it certainly didn't catch fire by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even know if he got it off the ground, to be honest with you. I'm sure some people listening to this probably do.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know whatever happened with that too, because I wonder if it just did stay that local. Like, hey, we're just doing little things consistently, but never anything, like you said, to make the world talk. But I like how much he liked you. I wanted to play that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. He did have a respect, and it was a mutual respect, and just seemed like a really nice guy,
Yeah. There was I got a nice vibe off of him, He also, I think, was taking responsibility for his health having been a problem. Like, he's like, no, that was me, and I had to focus on it. So
it wasn't isolated, that's for sure. Back then, a lot of people had it.
Yeah. I got two more clips that we're looking at for this one. Just two callers back to back. Mr. Brian from Long Beach and James from Lindenhurst, both talking about Flair. Because I thought this was kind of an interesting time frame on Flair. And then the outro made me laugh, so I have that too. But
yeah, Brian, which is Brian Last.
Yes, this is Brian Last from Long Beach.
His voice has changed since then.
A little bit.
Let's listen to Brian Last from 30 years ago.
Let's get to the phone. 661-1440 is the number to call, and we'll go to Brian from Long Beach.
Yeah, how's it going, John?
Hi, Brian.
I have one thing to say. I want to know what's up with Flair.
The Nature Boy.
Yeah, because I was in the Arena Club last week, the WWS card. I'm on the line to see Smoking Guns, and they turned on TBS.
Yeah.
And I got to see the first Flair for the gold. And honestly, everybody in the place is booing.
Were they really?
Yeah, they just didn't like Flair for the gold. What's going on with them?
Wow. That's really a surprise, because I thought that segment myself was a pretty hot segment that they did last week. But he will be wrestling in June. He'll be taking on Barry Windham, I guess, for the NWA title.
Well, is he going to be a face or a heel?
He will be a face.
He will?
Yes.
Oh.
That's life.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay. 661-1440. Ric Flair is a babyface or a heel, as a corruptive individual or a saint. He's still one of the best in the business. And it will be for at least another few years. Flair's got some good years left. Number to call here is 661-1440. And don't forget tonight on Pro Wrestling Spotlight, 10:50 a.m. WEVD at 11 o'clock. We have Cactus Jack on with us, and a very, very subdued Cactus that I spoke to this week. He will not be taking calls tonight, but he does want to talk to the fans. We've gotten a ton of letters for him, get well wishes, and Cactus does want to address the folks who have been sending these cards and letters to him, and address the wrestling fans and let them know how he is doing and what the situation is. 661-1440 line is open right now. Give us a call. You could get through if you try dialing at this very second. And also, tonight we may try to get on Mr. Terry Funk. Terry, of course, competed in that explosive mine match in Japan this past week. Terry was saved from being totally blown up, but there were several explosions inside the ring. We'll go to James from Lindenhurst. James, you're next.
All right, John.
How are you?
Yeah, I just wanted to concur what Brian said before. I was at the Arena Club, too, and, I actually found myself booing Ric Flair.
Really?
I mean, he's turning to Tommy Rich. He's trying to live off of 1986. If he doesn't get anything done now, I mean, he really can't be trying to live off a reputation from years back. I mean,
yeah, that's real true. He's got it. The fans are getting impatient. He's been back there for several months now, and he should be back in the ring. You will see him back in the ring. I don't know if they were just doing this to try to add some suspense and heat to his eventual return, but the fans are getting pretty impatient.
Yeah, I mean, isn't this what Vince McMahon kind of offered him back at the end of his WWF stint? He said, we'll make you a suit instead of a wrestler, and he said, no, I can't do that, and now he ends up being pretty much that for 4 months now in WCW.
Well, you're going to eventually see this, okay? I know that he'll take on Wyndham for that title and probably win it, and you'll see him down the road, probably by the end of the year, try to have a unification match with Vader. So I think you'll see some good Ric Flair wrestling. It's just a matter now of getting him back in the ring so the fans can appreciate him once again.
Yeah, what's with Hulk Hogan? I mean, he wants McMahon to give him the title the day of WrestleMania, and he gets it, and then he glorifies the IWGP belt. I mean, what's the deal with that?
Well, I don't know. That's a question that someone should ask Hogan. What the hell is going on with him? Why is he doing this? I'm sure that it didn't make Vince McMahon very happy when he went ahead and trashed the WWF title. That's not right.
Spoiled company champions.
That's right.
All right, thanks a lot, John.
In other words, what you call him is a prima donna. Prima donna. Gets everything he wants. Sitting here, James is sitting here, and James, you're just getting off from work, right?
Yes, I am.
First stop on a Saturday is right here.
That's right.
Had a few videotapes I was supposed to give you, but I didn't bring them.
Forgot as usual.
Forgot. It's been a rough week. Couple of weeks here. 661-1440 is the number to call. And
yep, James from Seaford.
A lot of regular trips during this era.
Yeah, there wasn't there?
Yeah, he was coming through a lot.
I like the weed.
Yeah. I like how he walked in and you're like, I forgot the tapes.
Yeah. Should have made him the co-host, right?
Yeah, just pop him down. Be like, I don't have I don't have the tapes, but come take a few calls.
Or if you fast forward to present day where, marijuana is now legal for recreational purposes in New York, I could have actually promoted it on the show if I was still doing a show in New York, and maybe even created a little cottage business.
Yeah. It would have paid for itself.
Yeah, it certainly would have. I wouldn't have to worry about brokering anymore, that's for sure. But anyway, they only give licenses out to people. They only give licenses out in New York to people who have been convicted of a marijuana crime. So those are the people who are allowed to open the dispensaries up in New York.
Well, I guess that's sort of like getting a license, right?
Well, Manhattan's a different story. Manhattan's a different story because there's almost like ice cream trucks that are just peddling marijuana throughout the streets of Manhattan. And, police can't do anything about it. They've sprung up everywhere. So it's almost like in every street corner you could go and buy your weed. It's legal, but these places don't have licenses. So it's creating quite the havoc up there, among so many other things at this period.
But then it's self-serving, right? If you get arrested, then you can get your license.
There you go, right?
So, I'm hoping to get arrested so I can expand into a brick and mortar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's chaotic up there. I mean, the laws, the politics, everything that they do, it's crazy. I'm glad I live in the state of Tennessee, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
New York is my home, and my family's there, and the Mets are there, but it's a little chaotic.
Yeah. Let's see. We had a couple more calls come through that Adam from Levittown was asking what's going on with the Lightning Kid because he's being shown as a jobber, and you guys both agreed that he was so much better than what they were showing him. But you then break it down and say that you heard that they plan to have him lose a lot and catch a surprise victory over a middle guard guy, someone in the mid card, so he could be kind of an underdog and get over that way. He says, "Do you think it'll work?" And you say, "I don't know." I don't think they.
So yeah, I do remember that when I uploaded the show. I was like, wow, this was so prolific, saying, this is exactly what happened. And I'm wondering who I heard it from. Did I hear from Sean?
Maybe you called him and said, "Hey, what's going on, man? It sucks for you." And he goes, "Oh no, trust me." But I don't know that. I mean, Razor wasn't a middle guy at that time, was he?
No, Razor was
guy.
near the top. He was a B. He was a B level. He wasn't C level. I mean, he wasn't in main events all the time, but he certainly was one of the top guys up there.
So I bet you they just didn't know it was going to be Razor at the time, and that was their plan. And then Razor, being who he is, and saying, "No, it's going to be me." Like, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right for this guy. Like, that's cool.
And they did it right.
Yeah. You talk about how you got a ton of negative mail after having Paulie on the show the other week because he was hanging up on people and being abrasive.
Yes.
Yeah. Steve from West Hampstead asks if they're going to take any action against Vader after everything happened with Mick. And you say, not that you are aware of, but if someone told him to lighten up, that would be something you wouldn't know about. They also ask about the Power Twins. They had the WCW tryout, WWF tried out, like that. Everyone seems to be passing. So,
well, they failed their tryout with us.
Yeah.
So they've been banished, never to return, unless they get computers, high-speed internet, Wi-Fi. And I don't think that's going to happen. So we could bid farewell to the Twins.
Yeah, most likely, yeah. Let's see.
But you can find them on social media, always commenting on every Sunny Beach post by calling them I'm not even going to repeat it, but they always have like these enormous people eating food and saying that Sunny Beach is at the buffet again. That's all they do to this guy, every post that he makes.
That's funny. Oh, Don from Sayville. Remember how we couldn't figure out you'd missed the tape from the morning show?
Yep.
The previous week? Don from Zayville calls in and says, "Real stunt you pulled last week putting on a tape of all the Cactus Jack stuff." He goes, "I thought that was live for a minute until some of the stuff started coming on. Like it was you did a best of Cactus."
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah. You did like every call in and in studio thing.
Cactus. I would have liked to have that tape now because we would have put that up for patrons, but alas, never to be found.
I mean, you still have all the original stuff from the old episodes.
Oh, yeah.
File, so.
Yeah. Well, that answered that question, though, because that was a mysterious what happened to that tape and what was it? And now we know. Thank you, Don from Sayville, 30 years ago.
Best Cactus. He also asked you who are the Smoking Guns, and you don't know. Were Billy and Bart not... Was that kind of their first thing? Did they not appear other places first?
I just probably wasn't paying attention, which I should have been, but they didn't, they didn't rock my boat.
Yeah, that's true too.
I wasn't into the cartoon gimmicks and the cowboys and Indians and everything else that was going on with every gimmick that they had in that era in the WWF.
That's true. And you've been vocal about that on the show too. You did say that on the Raw episode, Captain Lou looked like he lost a lot of weight, and you mentioned that Vince looks really big, and you say it must be all that Ico Pro. And then I enjoy. You had a hard time getting all the callers for this one, which is kind of funny because in the next one you had too many callers.
Yeah.
But your outro on this made me laugh. It was the last 2 minutes of the show or so.
Okay.
And you're waiting for someone to call in. And to me, I just like it. It's just good radio.
Let's hear it.
We'll take one more call.
One more call, 661-1440. Dial up right now and try to get through. Where's the Jeopardy music? Do we have any of that Jeopardy music? 661-1440. Still no call. Too late now. All right. That's it. Our listeners are all finished. Our 10 listeners are now... Oh, there we go. I tell you, they hung up. They're just teasing us. It's like that date that I didn't have this week. Last Saturday night, I went to the China Club. I'm going to finish the show with a sad story.
Wait, before you do that, what, we have 10 listeners and they all call and that's it?
I know.
What's the problem here?
So maybe I'll leave that story for next week, because if I think about it, I'll be crying again. How many minutes we got, Tom? 1? Anyway, Bruce, we went out to China Club last week. You remember that?
This week.
Bruce is answering the phone in here.
Who's this?
Met a beautiful girl, James. She was a 10. She was selling roses in the place. She came up to our table and said, would you gentlemen like to have a rose? I was out with Dave Meltzer, who was here also. I said, well, I'll buy a rose if you go out with me Monday night. And lo and behold, she agreed to the date.
She stood you up.
And what happened? I was stood up. Very sad.
John, go back there and get her.
Sad story. Anyway, that's all. I can't talk no more today. Time to cut it, Tom. Is that what you're saying? Wrap it up. What does that mean? Half a minute? Huh? 30 seconds. So that's like a half a minute sign of this. Tom Ross, our engineer here today. Bruce Jacobs, our producer. We're going to wrap it up tonight. Don't forget Pro Wrestling Spotlight at 11 p.m. on WEVD, 1050 on the dial. And we'll have Cactus Jack on tonight, hopefully Terry Funk. And, of course, next week we will return right here and talk more wrestling. Until then, this is John Arezzi. We'll talk to you tonight, everybody.
Wow, what a sad story.
It's a sad story, a lot of dead air.
Yeah. I was probably still reeling from being stood up by the girl who was selling roses. Like, what kind of idiot was I? Like, what's, here I am, like 350 pounds, and there's probably some very attractive young woman wanted to sell a rose. I probably bought one, and it wasn't catfished. I guess I was just stood up.
Yeah. You're out with the guys probably trying to...
Yeah. Pick up girls.
Pick up girls. Hey, I'll be slick with this one. I'll buy one if, And...
Yeah, well, I'm still single.
Joke's on her.
But I've stopped looking. I've stopped looking,
Well, and they stopped selling those roses.
Once you get past 60, everything just starts going, it's over. Let's put it that way. It's over.
I'm sure her rose business didn't take off, so joke's on her.
Yeah, that's right. Where is she today? It's probably 400 pounds somewhere, living in a who knows what.
Or it's probably it's New York. She probably won an Oscar 5 years later.
Yeah. Well, it's a good one today, Mark. Imagine. It was a good show. A little backwards. We did the morning show last and the evening show first because Mr. Skoler was gracious enough to join us with his presence, and that's always fun. I got something cool kind of happened. I don't know about analytics and, when social media companies kind of praise you. On my Map Memories public page on Facebook, we were anointed rising creator for journalism. I guess that's kind of cool. I guess they look at the analytics, and we've had on posts over the last couple of weeks, we had over 15,000 likes on our posts.
Dang. Yeah,
that's pretty cool, right?
That's really cool. I think people are starting to really dig the shout outs and stuff. And and unfortunately, some of it's coming up because people are passing and stuff. But
yeah,
it does mean that people are looking and they're finding you and going, oh, wait, there's a lot here.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of engagement, and that Captain Lou Albano thing. That thing just kind of like that bloody shot of him, just all of a sudden went viral on Facebook, and it's still like crazy. And of course, when you but really appreciate everybody that's checking the social media pages out, and we'll continue to keep posting some really cool content for everybody, as we do on this show, Marsh. I mean, every week is a new adventure, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's what is so fun about it. When you upload a new tape for me to listen to, I'm all like, what are we going to find? Because there's going to be gems.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way, because it's like, it's new to me after 30 years.
You ever tape one and then before you upload it, almost get like excited for me to dig into it?
Yes.
Like, oh, he's going to get a kick out of this one.
Yes. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, because now that you're familiar with some of the regular callers. Obviously each week is kind of a new little treasure chest. You open it up and you see what's in it. Could be some golden nuggets, or it could be some coal, or it could be just some shit. But
which are their own nuggets in their own way. When you have a really bad spot,
shit nuggets.
Yeah.
But anyway, you've been keeping busy, with the unfortunate passing of Billy Graham. We got that special to do. We talked about the reunion show, and I'll put up a poll. And we'll figure it out what we're going to do with that over, what was it, an hour and a half of just...
I think it was an hour 10.
Agita is what they say in Italian. It's agita, which means it's indigestion that leads to acid reflux. So I've got agita from that show.
Well, you described it very well when you said it was funny until it stopped being funny, and then it just became a mess.
A mess, annoying, infuriating.
Yeah,
because you have two guys that weren't even listening to you. They were just talking amongst themselves. Yeah. And Broadway Sonny Blaze trying to, say, oh, it's so great to see you. And he was being really nice. And Donnie's just cracking up. I mean, Donnie just starts laughing multiple times. And we did get Donnie on camera, too, on that one, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
I
like how proper he was. But, yeah.
And then, it was crazy. And I don't know if you did this on purpose or whatever, but was like towards the end, it was like Donnie was talking about something. And then me and Sonny Blaze started burying him about his call, and I was like, Donnie's sitting there probably after 30 years saying, look.
Well, I just thought it would have been a funny thing. You know what they did too in one of the old episodes? I didn't even pull the clip on it. A caller calls in and goes, "It was Don from Huntsville or something."
Yeah.
And he goes, you say, all right, caller, you're on. And he goes like, this is Don. I didn't get the issue of Pro Wrestling Observer this week, so that's the end of the capsule. Time, whatever. And and then you start laughing. You're like I was making fun of Donnie. Like,
oh, he's such a great guy, man. And anyway, I mean, it's always fun. I mean, and it's really remarkable that you are in touch with people from all these years ago. And Donnie goes back 50 years. Al goes back. Sonny Blaze goes back 30 plus, 35 years, close to it. So anyway, it's just kind of cool to keep in touch with everybody after all these years, and even Skoler. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah. For me, it's cool because, hey, it may not have turned out into a show that's like usable, but it was kind of a fun time for an hour for me to watch a bit of a reunion happen anyways,
We'll figure it out somehow. Yeah. We're not going to try it again with them guys in Vegas, the twins. But, we'll see what we could salvage. If it's best, some clips, some fucking bloopers, whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. Yeah. We'll figure it out another time. When you get back home,
yeah,
I don't want you to think about it for the next week until you're home safe.
Wow.
Because, you don't need the agita.
Yeah. Yeah. I need that bubbling up again.
Yeah. Well, Marsh, always a pleasure. Great one today. Appreciate it. Hope your family's great out there in California and everything's going good. And we certainly appreciate you very much.
Yeah, it's been really good. I taught my grandma how to download an app for Domino's and then had her order loaded tots on her own. It was...
Was it good? Did she feel really great about that? Like, it was like, wow, now I could order from Domino's.
She couldn't believe the stuff that was doing it because I was like showing her how to do the fields, and then I just thought I would show her that you can dictate into the phone too.
Yeah.
She was all like wowed by it, you know.
How old's your grandma?
82, 83.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Get into technology at that age.
She never had to.
Good.
She never had to before because that was Grandpa's thing, and he was an old military man, so everything was watching and listening. So he was very like, we don't need, you know what I mean? So,
right.
Wow. It was really cool.
Generations. All right, my friend. Always good to see you. And everybody else, that's going to be about, I'm going to talk like an Italian now. Hey, that's going to about wrap it up for today. Please, for those of you who would like to join our Patreon page, I really highly recommend it. Patreon.com/John Arezzi, and you will be satisfied with all the content that's there and more content being released every single week. I want to also let you know, if you want to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, it's simply @John Arezzi, and on Facebook, I talked about our public page. Just look for John Arezzi's Matt Memories. As a private group there as well. You got to answer a couple of simple questions. If you're a wrestling fan, they'd be easy for you to answer. And we have our Pro Wrestling Spotlight podcast and radio show private group on Facebook as well. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel, because all of these shows are up there on video, and especially for this one. I mean, Marsh has found that main event at Triple Mania 1, so we'll be inserting that into the show as well. I want to remind you that our next episode of Matt Memories from Madison Square Garden will be coming out in about a week. We'll be talking about the June 4th, 1973 show at Madison Square Garden. And we're going to bring on a special guest on the Matt Memories from Madison Square Garden, Carrie Silken, who was a Ring of Honor owner. And Carrie used to go to all those matches back then, so we figured we'd bring him on to talk about Madison Square Garden wrestling from 50 years ago. So look for that one. That is available anywhere you get your podcast. That's called Matt Memories from Madison Square Garden. It is co-hosted by Tim Poutre, and it's written and researched by Richie Garcia. And a lot of the information we get, I rarely give this book a plug, but go to crowbarpress.com. Scott Teal has a number of great wrestling books there. And the Bible that I use, it's called Wrestling in the Garden. It has every single house show that took place at Madison Square Garden, and it's pretty comprehensive. I mean, right from the early 1900s, and it has every single show and all the results and stories right up through 2016. So it's a really good book. crowbarpress.com, Wrestling in the Garden by Scott Teal. I want to thank our executive producers from Patreon, Mr. Anthony Pyrus, Mr. Joe Holloway, and I also want to thank every single one of the patrons for your support, helping with the production costs for this show. Until next week, when we relive more history with you, this is John Arezzi for the Pro Wrestling Spotlight.